Hi everyone, it's Rax, and welcome to the Season 1 class tier list for Diablo 4. We had the pre-launch tier list, and we've been making these every season for Diablo 3. We just had a patch released yesterday, which not many people were happy about, and Blizzard has called an emergency campfire meeting to talk to us about it on Friday, and we have seen all the malignant hearts that are going to be released for the season. So let's see how they all shib up and where every class lands, at least with my best estimation in Season 1. Let's quickly go over the methodology and how we rank everything. So every class in these different categories is going to be ranked 1st to 5th, 1st being the best, 5th being the worst. There are no ties allowed. First category will be leveling. It's their ability and quality of life in going from level 1 to torment difficulty. So once you clear that capstone dungeon, that's the leveling process. For speed, it's their ability to farm the overworld events and the low and the mid-tier nightmare dungeons. This is pretty much your journey up to 100 before you're going to go into the next category, the end game. This is just pushing nightmare dungeons and going after the pinnacle bosses. So the super hard content. Survivability is self-explanatory, how well they survive. A casual is how far can this class go with minimal game time, minimal skill, minimal gear. And when I say minimal game time, I'm talking like 5 hours a week or less, so barely any. We'll take all of that and we'll make a combined overall score to see which class is the best next season. And the golden rule for this is don't let my tier list tell you what to do. Play whatever is fun to you. Don't let my sources or anybody else's tell you how to live your life. One warning that needs to be thrown out there is all the stuff in Season 1 we've read about it. Nobody's tested anything. So all of it is just our best guess on how it will impact all the classes going forward. Coming in dead last is the Barbarian, which is my favorite class, and it was by far the best class at launch, which is why I had them at number 1. Barbarians have suffered from massive nerfs across the board, and they've also suffered from bug fixes, which, Blizzard is right to fix them, which have corrected their absurd amounts of damage. So Whirlwind started off as the best build game, and then they nerfed the Gores, and they've already changed it 2 more times since then. Just got another fresh change on that one. Used to be like the best unique in the game, and now it's really not. And the damage to Whirlwind has suffered tremendously. Then Hoda was discovered to be incredible. That is gone now because of their outer ring nerf was doing way too much damage. That's gone as well. Then there were some bugs where some of their bleeds could do, with certain combinations, could do billions and trillions of damage. That's gone. Then we lost our million things with our shout, the shout cooldowns and this and that. That's gone. And then we got a massive nerf to our best passive hamstring. So to say that Barbarians have taken a big hit would be the understatement of the century. Barbarians were already probably the worst at leveling, and now they're still really bad. They haven't gotten anything that's really going to make them any better at that. For speeds, they were quite good, but with all the nerfs to the shouts and really the nerfs to all the builds, all the damage that they used to have, it's hard for them to compete with some of the other top tier builds that the other classes have now. In the end game, they're either the worst or the second worst. Barbarian and Sorcerer are going to have to duke it out for who sucks more. Maybe Thorns can still clear Nightmare Dungeon 100, and maybe you can get it done maybe with a new Rupture build or something. Not really sure. Uber Lilith will still probably be possible because Barbarian survivability is good, which is a new category that we added in. Probably the second best in surviving, maybe close to the best with Druids. But we took out the group play because group play doesn't really matter, because when you play in groups, everybody goes different lanes. So you're essentially just playing solo in a 4-player group. So group play, at least with the current meta, doesn't make any sense. So in the end game, for the Nightmare Dungeon pushing and for Uber Lilith, it's going to be very hard for Barbarians. About the only thing that saves them is their survivability. For casuals, they're definitely the worst. Their start and their leveling process is very bad, and once you actually get everything going, their speed is not as good as the other classes. And so overall, that brings them from the best class, they were the best by far on launch, to the worst. Their best builds are probably most the same things. Whirlwind Hoda, Double Swing is looking pretty good. Thorns, and maybe the new Charge Barb or the new Rupture Barb with the new notes, and their Malignant Hearts aren't looking that great either. In Season 2, just bring back the Launch Barb. It was full of bugs and stuff, but Barbs really, really need some help. Um, I said in the previous video that barbarians were going to be just fine. Well, not after these patch notes and not after these malignant hearts. I don't think they're fine at all. Coming in fourth, we have the Sorcerer. A lot of people will probably think Sorcerer is the worst. I really don't think they are. And actually, the Sorcerer is really good at some things and really, really bad at other things. So Sorcerer for leveling, we had them as second best. I think they're definitely just the best. They hold all the world records right now. They can fly with leveling with a lot of different ways. They can Arc Lash is very strong. Chain Lightning is very strong. Ice Shards is very strong. Firewall is very strong. All of it's very good for leveling. You can slap together pretty much anything that you want, and you can dominate the leveling process as a sorcerer, which does make up a good part of the game. Their speed will be fine because when you're speed clearing, you don't really have to account for your survivability. Once a sorcerer can muster up enough damage, which is difficult to do actually, because of all the recent nerfs, and sorcerers got hit really hard with their devouring passive and credit damage and the vulnerable and damage to crowd control. Their damage went down significantly, but their speed will still absolutely be there when you put together a full sorcerer build with teleporting in with raiment. I think they're going to delete all the speed content extremely well. Now here comes the bad news, which is what brings the sorcerer so low. Once you get done leveling and you make this really powerful sorcerer, now you got to do the end game, and now you got to try to survive and stuff. And this is going to be an absolute nightmare. It's going to be very hard to go up to Nightmare Dungeon 100, and Uber Lilith is going to be a huge challenge because of the aspect of control nerf. You're not going to be able, shouldn't be able, unless somebody can theory craft it, to one-shot her in one stagger rotation anymore. It's going to make it really hard. There is one malignant power, which potentially is going to give her more cast on some of her projectiles, and as you see, Charge Bolt as a question mark down below. Maybe that will be a great build. Maybe you can theory craft something with that. So that might be a possibility. But problem with Sorcerer is very strong in the beginning, and then once your survivability comes into play and you have to actually do stuff in the end game, it's going to be very difficult. For casuals, again, casuals don't really care. They don't really get to the end game. They don't do that super hard stuff. So for a casual player, a sorcerer is going to be pretty good. If you don't really quite know what you're doing, there's a lot of options for sorcerer that just dominate the leveling process. But overall, when you combine the really good beginning with the horrendous ending, I think they dropped to fourth because the other classes ahead of them just don't have these problems. Their best builds are Ice Shards, Firewall, Chain Lightning should be pretty good, Blizzard should be really good, and Charge Bolts might surprise some people and might end up being really good. Season 2, they just need more survivability. If sorcerers around the world have been crying for it, if sorcerers just had way better survivability, a lot of their problems would be solved. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Coming in third, we have the Necromancer, which is kind of surprising to me. Before we got the patch notes and before we saw the Malignant Hearts or anything like that, I was expecting to put Necromancer very, very low. But a lot of the other passive, or a lot of the other classes below them got crushed, like Barbarian and Sorcerer. And the Necromancers actually got away pretty well here. So the Necromancers got their best build, Bone Spear, nerfed, which we knew would happen, but Bone Spear is still really strong. It's still one of the best builds in the game. So that's very good for Necromancers. And although their kit isn't amazing, the whole Blood Mist, Corpse Explosion, Corpse Tendril, Decrepify, the Necromancer kit is very lackluster. Blizzard seems to be buffing Necros in the right direction. There's minion buffs this season. There are blood buffs, which we needed. So Necromancer is one of the only classes that seems to be trending in the right direction because Bone Spear is so strong, and because Summoner will be pretty good, and because Bloodlance and Finimist and Bone Spirit are still going to be pretty good. They're going to be fine. Leveling, they get a pretty good score, even though they're very slow, because they got a 5 in speed, mostly because Blood Mist sucks. You're just walking around everywhere. But leveling, they're pretty good because all you have to do is go get the Bone Spear power, and it will carry you. Just very strong. So it's not going to be a problem. And as the minions continue to do better, not only will they do more damage, and some of the Malignant Hearts may contribute to this. There's a minion one, which also could be converted to damage for yourself. There's auto corpse explode and things like that. There's auto curse. Some of these choices are just better than for some of the other classes. So leveling's good with Bone Spear, you have no problem. And when the minions are doing better, well, if they stay alive and they tank for you and they actually do some damage, well, remember the first beta Necro? They were the gods of leveling because they just dominated everything. In the end game, they'll do pretty well. Again, because of Bone Spear and some of their other builds, maybe Summoner may come to life. We'll see how much the buffs actually matter. They can fight at range, and they have an invulnerability with Blood Mist. That makes them one of the best classes for Uber Lilith. They'll be just fine there. Survivability, they're just kind of in the middle of the road. Nothing too spectacular. Again, they can stand back. If their minions are there, they're tanking for them, and they have an invulnerability with Blood Mist. If it's auto decrepify all the time, that'll help them as well. So in season 1, so that'll help. So in casuals, they're probably just middle of the road. If you haven't noticed, Necros are just kind of middle of the road at everything except speed, just 3s down the board. Necromancers will feel good, especially if you target one of the top tier builds and build it correctly. I think you're going to feel pretty decent on a Necromancer. So Bone Spear, Bloodlance, the blood builds have been buffed, so that's probably going to be a good one. Infinimist, how good is Summoner going to be next season? I don't know. We'll see. Probably pretty good. Season 2, I mean, the thing I got a 5 on is speed. We just need Necros to move faster. Once they can move faster, they're going to be a contender across the board for sure. Now we're moving into the top dogs here. We have the Kenmore Refrigerator in second, otherwise known as the Fat Witch Doctor, aka the Druid. Druids are just good at everything. They have a 4 for leveling, but I'm telling you, if you just play Human Tornado and just throw tornadoes everywhere, it's pretty good. It's not the best, but it's pretty good. You can get it done. For speeds, once they actually put everything together, when you put together the Were Tornado build, when you finally find your Tempest Roar, you're pretty much moving at the movement speed cap. The annoying part is it's locked behind a unique. But remember, there are a lot of good builds that you can play without a unique that are very strong. The Pulverized build is very good. Human Tornado works as well. Shred and Lightning Storm are becoming very popular. So there's certainly a lot of options on the Druid class. In the end game, they're going to have no problem at all. They're very, very tanky. They're very, very strong. And their most powerful thing, Rampaging Werebeast, survived, and it didn't get nerfed. The one thing that did get nerfed is Grizzly Rage doesn't grant you perma unstoppable, which means Druids are going to get crowd controlled some, and some of their sustain got nerfed. However, then one of the Malignant Hearts just solves that issue for them because you have, I don't know what the percentage is, like a 60% chance when you get hit and or crowd controlled to activate Grizzly Rage, which gives you 6 seconds of unstoppable. So Druids are not going to be feeling the brunt of that change in season 1, so they'll still be dominating. And I think their survivability is going to be the best in the game, if not the second best of the Barb. Druids and Barbs probably the best survivability. Barbs can actually tank some waves and a ghost on Uber Lilith or two. At least they could before. We'll see how it goes this season with all the nerfs. For casuals, though, there's 2 problems. They don't have the best leveling experience, and you do usually need some key pieces or a unique or two to make their builds really shine in the end game. I don't think casuals are going to find these things, and casuals may not find the right combinations to make these builds really shine. So I think they're toward the bottom for casuals. If you know what you're doing, they're one of the best. Overall, I'd put them in second. Pulverize, Werenado, Shred, Lightning Storm, Bulwark survived. They tried to nerf it. It's still great, as far as I've heard. So still great. It's kind of a meme build. I wish they would kill that entirely, but what are you going to do? In season 2, one of the better things that could help them is just a better leveling process. We have 1 or 2 really powerful leveling options. We could get to the end game and get those uniques faster to make our builds work. Druids would really shine. And finally, the kings of season 1, in my opinion, are going to be rogues. And I made a mistake, probably looking back at my pre-season or my season launch tier list. Probably the biggest mistake that I made was underestimating rogues. I thought that their lack of survivability would make them borderline unplayable in the endgame, and it just didn't turn out to be true. Rogues continued to come up with ways to survive things, and their strengths everywhere else in the game made them incredible. In the patch notes, they didn't really suffer much at all. They got nerfed on their sustain with Siphoning Strikes, But other than that, they survive pretty good. And one of their malignant hearts is applying all the imbuements with a certain chance. That's probably going to be really strong as well. So rogues are just pumping here. For leveling, they're incredible. Only beaten by sorcerers. This has been proven time and time again. Sorcerers have all the best times, but rogues are close. They're there. So you just go get the twisting blade power and you're dominating. Flurry becomes very good early game if you want to level as flurry. Some of the bow builds are pretty good. Penetrating shot. And Shadow Imbue is just ridiculous for leveling. That AoE, and it restores all of your energy with consuming shadows. Just destroying. Speeds, they're up there with sorcerers. They're like the top two for speeds. I think rogues are just going to have a little bit of an easier time. I think they're going to have less survivability problems and more ways to get out of things. And I think their damage might overall just be higher. And sometimes damage is a huge factor in your speed. And because you have dash and shadow strike, is that what it's called? Shadow step. I mean, you're just flying all over the map. So rogues are going to feel real good. In the end game, you switch over to the bow builds. You have no problem pushing the nightmare dungeons. Pretty much any of their bow builds can do it. The melee builds are tougher, but can get it done as well. They did not nerf bursting venoms, and in fact, there's a way to, I think, increase your imbuements even further. So I mean, I think rogues are going to kill Uber Lilith no problem. Survivability, it might be a little bit misleading. Their survivability when they're standing there getting hit is low, but rogues have a lot of tricky ways to get out of it with all their dashes and the shadow steps and what are the little the dark shrouds and things like that. There's a lot of ways to get out of it. The traps oftentimes CC so you can get out. Rogues have some options. Casuals, they're incredible. A lot of their early builds work. They're very fast. They never struggle at all, and especially if you just walk over, get that twisting blade power at the beginning, you're just going to destroy the whole game the whole time, no matter how much you play. I think overall, rogues are the best in the game in Season 1. Twisting blades, flurry, rapid fire, penetrating shot, barrage, they're all just going to dominate a lot of the usual suspects. The biggest thing that rogues get is more defense and sustain, which they just took away from us by nerfing Siphon Strikes. Here are the final rankings. If you'd like to take a screenshot, let me hide my webcam so you can go ahead and see that it's overall down there. But here's how everything's shaped up. And I guess I should have mentioned this earlier, but if you're wondering what all the colors and the pluses and the minuses mean, the big numbers mean the actual ranking. The plus or minus and the little numbers mean the change from the launch tier list. And the pink, the survivability, just means it's a new category, so there's nothing to compare it to. 5 is the worst and 1 is the best, as we talked about earlier. That's it for the tier list, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear down below. What did you think? Did you think I got it all right? Do you think I'm really underestimating something? I didn't have a chance to actually test anything on Season 1 like everybody else, so we're going to find out a lot of these things on the fly, and honestly, it's going to be more exciting that way, because in D3, we usually knew absolutely everything ahead of time. There will be some experimentation here, and we'll have to figure things out. I'll see you in the next video, and I'll see you live tomorrow for the hardcore race, which I will be competing in. Thank you.